Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth week of the Redshift challenge. So this is my very first time presenting. So I hope I will do everything in order. So I'm Lionel Vicidomini and we have with us Dustin Valkema, which is who is going to do the art today, our Redshift challenge. So before a little bit of housekeeping. So here you can see my screen. So yeah, everyone can see my screen, I hope. There is no reason you, okay, looks all right. You can see, so on the Maxon events web page, all the events we are hosting. So this is us today, but we have a lot of other shows going on. And they're all very interesting. And you can find, once they're recorded, you can find them on the Maxon Training Team. So we have a bunch of videos now. It's always over expanding. There is the Cinema 4D quick tip from Jonas, always very interesting also. And the show Maxon Color, well, I'm sure you know about that. In the handout section, you will find the PDF with all the links and the very important password to have your t-shirt. It's free. You'd only have to pay for the shipping using this code. So get it in the handout section and go grab it. Okay, so today, the fourth week of the Redshift challenge, it's again Dustin and me. And this time, this is Dustin who is going to use Redshift with the handicap. We're going to vote on a poll. So last week it was me, and I had the mech piece, the shoulder piece, and I did this. This is my final render. So it was interesting because this geometry had a lot of triangles. It came from ZBrush, and it's hard modeling surface in ZBrush, meaning that we didn't have any quads and we didn't have any UV. But that's not a problem because using tripanel mapping, using the round corner and other tricks, I could achieve these looks. And the final render here is using also the magic bullet looks to give it a little more grunge to it. And so today we're going to have some more models, and we're going to have also different handicap. So yeah, about the models, I'm sure all of you know already them, but this is a bit improvised, as you can guess, meaning that I would like to show you the models to choose. I guess I'm going to show them inside Cinema 4D. So let's, we have three models. I'm going to launch the poll to choose them. We have three models to choose from. So we have this gorilla piece. They all come from ZBrush. We have a T-Fighter. Looks also great. Let me show it. It's loading. Any minutes now. Here it is. So yeah, this one is nice. A lot of polygons, a lot of details. And the last one, which was the last one? Yeah, the Gremlins, of course. So the Gremlin, I need to launch Cinema 4D, ZBrush. So let's do it. Sorry about that. I should have had the three pictures side by side. But that works
It's all
too.
good. I feel like it was just a moment ago that my audio finally started working.
Yeah,
Headphones today, having technical issues. It's all good.
exactly. We've had a few trouble, but it wouldn't be fun otherwise. Oh, how do I? Okay, so yeah, this is our goblin model, and I'm in panic mode. Oh yes, hide. Here we are. So, and we have this model, so Gremlins with a lot of details, also very interesting to work with. Okay, so let's recap this one. And then we have the T-Fighter. I don't even know if it's TIE Fighter. No, it's T-Fighter. Is it, Dustin?
TIE Fighter is.
TIE, all right. Sorry about that. And our Gorilla. So they're all three very different and very interesting. So let's choose, let's launch the poll. Let me get it. Yes, so I have launched the poll. Now you can vote for it. So can you see the result?
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see it. I was hoping for the gorilla sculpture. It looks like the gremlin is in first so far.
Ah, yeah. Maybe we can influence everyone. Ooh,
Everybody vote for the gorilla. I feel like
yeah,
that's going to be a
the TIE Fighter.
backwards.
Ooh, it's a tie. It's a tie for the TIE Fighter. Ooh, and is it closing by itself?
You'll have to close. You'll have to close the poll.
Oh, I should have done it a little while ago. So let's make a few more seconds. Okay, we got to the minutes. All right, so let's close it. It's the Gremlin.
Okay, so let me open this up a minute here.
Which is quite interesting. Share. Can you see it?
Yeah, awesome. That was actually much closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for a split second, it was the TIE Fighter in front. But for 2 seconds, I guess. All right, and now we have our second poll, which is which handicap are going to impose. So let's see, Redshift tools, and we have 4 of them. So let's launch it. So dome light, no dome light, no global illumination, no area light. This is a tough one, and or no post effect. So again, let's give it a minute, more or less. And everybody is voting, and Dustin is sweating.
A little bit. Post
And that's
effects and
interesting.
area light.
Again, oh, it's close again.
Wow, look at that.
That's interesting. Today, the poll is, it's tiebreak every time. Okay, let's give it a minute again. So for now, it's the post effects. Let's see. Ooh, 1 minute. All right, let's close it. So it's no post effects. Let's share. Yeah, let's share the result. So can you see it?
Oh wow. Okay, so no post effects. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, the Gremlins with no post effects. All right. So are you ready, Dustin?
Just about. I'm actually getting there.
Let
We
me
can make everything visible.
give you the screen. To staff Dustin, make Dustin organizer, make presenter. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, didn't pass it off. Show
And
my
can you?
screen. There we go. Look at that. All right.
Perfect. I can see it.
Okay, awesome.
And
So in
everyone else.
ZRush, yeah, we've got it loaded in. Let's
Uh,
go ahead and we'll go Z all. Let's see how this works to bring it over. give this a moment. I'll stop sharing my video here for a minute. There we go. All right. Holy cow. Okay. So it's all the way in. Let's go ahead and scale this guy down first. Let's select these pieces. We can get rid of the star there. And tolerance check, we can get rid of that as well. Okay, so let's see here. What I'll do first is place them all in a null so I can check out the coordinates here. Go to size plus, and yeah, that's a lot bigger than it needs to be. So we can throw in a reference cube here, and we'll just scale this gremlin all the way down. Not to 0%. See if it'll let us bring it back just a little bit. There we go. Computer's chugging here a little bit. All right. There we go. So we're getting somewhere. We might have to remesh this and make it a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so this isn't too bad. I feel like this is a little bit small still. If you can see down at the bottom right-hand side of my screen is what I'm looking at for kind of the overall scale. I could just merge this all down. So what my thought is for this one is maybe doing something a bit different and kind of creating some type of an environment for this. And so let me see here. Post effects is what it was, correct? So that is my handicap for today. Okay, this will be interesting. So I usually like to use bloom and glare and those post effects a lot. So in this case, I guess we won't do that. So what I'm going to do is we can go ahead and just start off with maybe a landscape object. There we go. You can scale this down. I'm quite okay with leaving the scene quite a bit smaller for this one. I don't want to go too crazy and have it large. Let's see. So my thought is initially, let's go ahead and move this guy. There we go. Is that we'll have some kind of maybe, I don't know if this would be like an idol, kind of some type of maybe ancient statue sitting in the middle of a canyon of sorts. So landscape object, we can go ahead and adjust the sea level and bring that down quite a bit. Maybe make this a bit larger. There we go. Can adjust the scale a bit. So I'm trying to think right now about more how we can what did Sharon say? We need rain because the Gremlin's turning the rain. Yeah, I feel like that might be a bit heavy in this scene specifically.
It's funny, I've watched the film with my children just a few days ago.
Yeah,
It's still very, very good.
that's awesome. Okay, so we don't really need to bump the segments up too far. We can place that in a subdivision surface to give a little bit of detail there. Kind of how I'm thinking to place this initially is actually not focusing so much on the details, which those who know me is I kind of get stuck in the details quite a bit. And so if we don't focus on details right away, we can focus a little bit more on, say, composition and lighting. We can take our guy here. Let's go ahead and grab our axis center. This will let us place the axis down at the bottom here. So we'll include children in all objects. Execute. And now this is going to make it a little bit easier for us to place this guy on the ground. So what we'll do here is actually use the place tool. And now we can just go ahead and click on the ground or any of these different surfaces, and it's going to place directly on those surface normals. So it makes it a bit easier to have these things kind of just happen rather than fiddling around with some of the orthographic views and things of that nature. All right, so a landscape object. Let's go ahead and throw a camera in the scene. So we'll grab a Redshift camera and just call this our hero cam, just in case we need to duplicate this later. I'm thinking we'll use something like a 24 millimeter focal length. Bring that down a bit lower, kind of a hero shot. There we go. What did she say, Sharon? You could put a cloud right over his head with just rain. Definitely could. All right, so I can't even really use post effects. So do I really care? I don't know if I care to have a Redshift camera tag on that. We'll just go ahead and leave this as is for now.
Yeah, I was wondering if depth of field is a post effect. I would say not, even though it's in the post effect. I'll let you see.
What does everybody think? Let's put that in the chat. How do we feel about a depth of field being a post effect? I feel like that's a bit more of a physical camera attribute.
Yeah.
I'll give it 2 seconds here before we go.
Yeah, I wouldn't say DOF is a post effect. Even though it's stored under the post effect settings, it's not. I think
Okay,
that's
awesome. It looks like I'm getting a little bit of love here.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do it. All right,
Okay.
so we'll grab our Redshift. Grab a Redshift camera. Oh, I need the tag. We can just go ahead and right click. Let's see, where is that guy in here?
It's the camera tags now.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
No, it's not. Sorry.
Nope. Okay. It's been a while. Look at camera. Let's see. Maybe not. Okay, so we won't worry about that at the moment if we're going to have kind of a brain fart moment.
Yeah, you just need to change. You need to change the render settings to Redshift.
Oh, that's what it is. Holy cow. See,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, I knew it was going to be a brain fart moment. All right, so let's go ahead and grab my handy preset here. There we go. This makes sense. And we can activate, and then we can remove. And what we'll do is change our output to, we can do, yeah, we'll just do a 16:9. Lock the ratio, and we can keep it there for now. And we'll keep all of that stuff intact. All right, so it feels like a Monday. Does anybody else feel it today?
I do.
There we go. All right, there's our camera tag. Okay, so let's go ahead and maybe just find a decent spot here. We can kind of get a nice general composition. Looks pretty good on this side. All right, throw a protection tag so that we can't move our camera anymore. Took me 3 times just leaving the house today. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Okay, so let's see. I feel like we have kind of a nice little rule of thirds here. I feel like we could actually probably move this just a little bit further over here. If you guys are ever curious about composition and how you can get helpers with this, just kind of visual cues. If you select your camera object, head down to composition, you can actually activate your composition helpers. And so we can have something like a grid here, which is bringing up our rule of thirds for us. And the other one that I use quite a bit is actually the golden spiral here. So
Mm.
this is really going to help us frame things in our scene. And yeah, so if you don't know about that, now you know about it. It's quite easy to use, kind of set up and activate these. All right, so now we have that set. What I'm thinking here is we may want to actually, I really like to have some focus through objects in my scene. It's kind of one of those things for me that I like to set up. Usually it's a last step, but in this case, we can go ahead and set this up right away. And our scene is quite a bit smaller. I'm hoping that if we use something like volume later, this isn't going to come back to bite us. So once I have my camera locked down, we can head up to panel arrangement, and then I like to do 2 views stacked if I don't need all of my orthographic views. So the top view is going to be our camera view or our render camera, and then the bottom will actually change this to perspective. There we go, just bring up our shaded mode. And so what this is going to allow us to do is go ahead and start moving through our scene, kind of manipulating different objects and still being able to see exactly what's happening here on the render cam. There we go. So at this point, kind of what I'm looking for is to have something to help accentuate our spiral. So if we go and we're looking at the Fibonacci spiral or the golden spiral here, you'll kind of see that we have these leading lines that are moving across. Now at a very, I guess, kind of general or basic level, what I'm generally trying to do is find different lines in the environment or scene that's going to help really play along with this to help lead the eye around the image and then focusing on our subject. So in
Mm.
this case, we're just going to move this around a little bit. We can actually make this quite a bit smaller. And now I'm also taking a look at the bottom here. If you ever are setting up your scene and maybe moving something in your render camera, just keep note of exactly where that's at on the bottom, because oftentimes I do find that I get lost. And like in this case here, I'm kind of moving stuff like right out of the field of view. And so I'm using the cone of the camera here to help realign everything quite a bit easily. All right, there we go. So now we have pretty decent lines. Moving in, we could add something to the right side. Give this a moment to auto backup. So I'll hold down the control key and just kind of move this off to the right side. And that should also help break up the ground a little bit. And we can actually do one more of these. And we'll place that right under this guy here. So I'm thinking to maybe put him on some type of a mound to push him up just a little bit further in the scene here. There we go. And we can grab our subject. Oh man, I can almost feel my computer just yelling at me. Um, if we need to remesh this, we will. I don't think it's completely necessary at the moment, um, but my computer is definitely feeling it. Okay, let's go ahead and save this a moment. Or it's already saving in backups. That's fine. All right, so we can grab the Redshift layout. This is going to give us the render view and our node editor. So what we'll do here, I don't believe that this came over. It did come over with materials. So we'll just go ahead and delete those materials for now. And we'll start off with lighting. So let's organize just a little bit here. Call this environment. subject here, and then we can throw that in with the environment. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab a dome light. Thank you for not choosing this one. This is probably the easiest way to actually manipulate the lighting in this scene. So for the dome light, let's see here. Let's go ahead to the asset browser and we can look for HDRI. There we go. Let's see here. I thought there were some new ones. Do you remember where those are at, Lionel?
The new HDRI, it's yeah, I've seen them lately, but I think it's only for the beta tester. I think if you don't
For
see
those,
them, yeah, that would explain now. You're talking
okay.
about the new HDRI. Yeah,
I thought I thought there were a few new ones kind of in and around. So
maybe it's
let's go
material.
ahead and we can just desktop, save. There we go. There it is. Okay, so what we'll do is I will just use Grayscale Gorilla for this. So that'll make it a bit easier. So I'll go ahead and take my texture, drop that into Drop Zone, and we can browse through the plus library. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick one here. Try empty parking lot.
So that's the plus library from Grayscale Gorilla.
Yeah, I actually kind of cheating with the Gorilla. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a workflow thing. It's what I'm used to using. So
It's
yeah.
great. I do have a subscription myself. It's very useful.
All right, so we have our scene that's being lit now. We can go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to start the render view and see where we're at. So kind of the focus, a lot of times you'll see me, focus on materials, kind of the moment that I get lighting together. I'm thinking about maybe doing this a bit differently and just having some fun with overall lighting and composition. I find that in some of these webinars we get kind of repetitive in the sense that we'll be doing materials and materials and materials. It's kind of
Mhm.
my playground, and so I'm thinking maybe we'll try this a little bit differently. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to rotate the HDRI and just backlight the goblin or gremlin. I know better. I'm sorry. Let's see how this works out. So this is a little bit more direct lighting than what I'll usually go for right off the bat. And so we'll try this out and see where we can get, and maybe we can work with this. Because what I'm thinking is actually having this a little bit more kind of cinematic, which you can definitely get from HDRIs. But what I do like, I actually do have kind of a normal preferred HDRI in this pack. So it's going to be the Hilton Head Rooftop. There it is. Okay. And so we can see here that this is a really nice kind of ambient lighting that's going to give me a pretty good base as well to start placing different lights in this scene. I'm thinking we'll probably just start to light from the back forward. Let's see, we have questions. Do we have any questions coming in?
Yeah, we do. There is one question just before about the size of the Gremlin. I mean, the polygon count, I think it's huge. It would explain why it's, your computer is stirring, but
Yeah,
I think it's largely over the million.
yeah, it's definitely it's large. Luckily, it is decimated, so that drops some of the count there, but it's definitely a larger object. Uh, let's see here. Mohammed is. Let's see. What is the plan of the technical reference for the suspension of the camera in space? What is the intended line of movement for the camera virtual real? I'm not exactly sure what the final question is. So if I'm not sure if I understand the question exactly, but if I were kind of placing this camera to be moving in an actual shot, this would definitely be kind of either a pan or dolly, just kind of a low pan, low dolly in,
Mm.
and the objects that are sitting here in the foreground um, would definitely be what I would consider, in photography space, is definitely a bit more of a focus through objects. So we'll have a bit of a depth of field in here and have these objects kind of just occluding the subject as it moves through. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm thinking that we can just go ahead and decrease the saturation. Maybe we don't want any, and I'll take the intensity of our dome light to something like maybe 0.5. There we go. Get that a bit more dramatic. And I do want a null object in space here. And so this null object is going to be the focus null. All right. So what I'm going to do is actually just place this right at the head of our gremlin. And I can actually use the place tool for this as well. So we'll focus, see if that lets us do it here. Right in between the eyes. And so now, once I go ahead and we'll just say use an area light here, and we can place a target tag, add target tag, and then we can pull the focus null into the target object. Okay, I can see chats coming up. If there are questions, go ahead and just kind of cut me off if we need to.
Yeah, I'm trying to answer. There is one question about the axis of the light. That's exactly what you're doing. Before you just have the dome light, and now you're giving some direction to the whole mood with the area light.
Yeah, this is basically just allowing me to more easily art direct the lighting in this space. And so there are times where I'll do this with a spotlight. In this case, I'm using an area light. Um, it just allows me to place this lighting. A lot of the work that I do is actually um, compositing subjects into different scenes and environments. And so instead of just using an HDRI for the overall lighting, I usually start with an HDRI for the ambient lighting, and then I'll move directly into kind of art directing, the overall look like this. Okay, this might actually be a bit small. Let's see if I can just get rid of our node editor here for a moment. There we go. Now, as I'm doing this type of stuff, this is probably a little bit different. When I'm placing these lights, I do have a few things in mind as I'm doing this. One of those is what assets am I going to use in post to help this pop quite a bit better? Um, and a lot of time that's going to come into maybe being like a sky replacement to show and emphasize or help better emphasize the light direction. Um, there have been plenty of times where I've gone and I've actually set these things up, and then I get to Photoshop and I don't know how I'm going to solve that problem as easily. So it is definitely something to consider. Is exactly how you plan on implementing the lighting that you're placing in the scene, kind of having a practical purpose to it. This one can be a little bit more creative and kind of fun, but it's very much along the same lines as how I would actually light a subject in real life and then match for objects in 3D. All right, so now we're getting some nice lighting on both sides of the subject. And what we could do is place some kind of a key light here. Are the sources like camera VFX of the deployed elements pre-configured, or do you have to leave the options set by default? Mohammed, if I'm understanding correctly, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now is just kind of throwing a little bit more slowly than I might normally do so, because I'm trying my best to explain some of this as I'm doing it. But I'm just throwing some different lighting into the scene before balancing anything or adjusting them, so they're kind of all default at the moment. As I start to, maybe get into furthering some of the composition, that's when I'll really start to adjust those settings. So Andy's asking, where did Dustin develop his knowledge of scene lighting and lighting techniques? A lot of trial and error and looking at reference. So yeah, it's now it's a little bit more. I kind of have a cool relationship between my 3D and 2D workflows as a photographer, but I actually got into CGI or 3D first, and that's what helped me push some of my creative lighting techniques in photography. And so now I kind of mix back and forth. There is a cool website called Shotdeck. I'm trying to see if I can pull this up here. I feel like the camera just got super glitchy. Can you still see my screen, everyone? Is it still there and working?
Yes, it's still here. It's Cinema 40, and we can see your browser too. So a part of it.
Part of it. Holy cow. Okay, maybe I won't do the browser thing. Let's abort that
Yeah,
mission here in a moment.
that's weird. Just a square rectangle.
Holy cow. Okay, so now it's currently stuck. We'll just consider these fun technical issues. So shotdeck.com is pretty much all I was trying to show everybody. Go ahead and Google it. It's
That's what I'm doing.
yeah, if you can pull that up and post that in the chat. It's a really cool library that helps with a lot of inspiration while I'm doing my work. And so when I'm looking into things like lighting, camera angles, color grading, and
Oh,
so on,
yeah,
it's
very
super
interesting.
cool. So let's go ahead, Lionel, if you can, like we can
Yeah.
sort of pause here and you can pull it up on your screen. And then I'll kind of talk about it a little bit. We'll do things a little bit differently today, because this is actually a very valuable resource for me. In parts of my workflow and understanding different creative lighting techniques um, across the board. So, are you able to actually pull the screen from me, or do I have to give it up?
To show the website.
Yeah.
I guess I have to. Let me try. All right, yes, here it is.
Aha, there we go. Okay.
So Shotdeck, library of film, one beautiful shot at a time. So you can find references to show shot.
Yeah, so this is actually, I mean, you can sort of get the gist of it here, um, as you're browsing, through through the homepage. But it will basically break down a whole lot of information on a film as far as the lenses that they were using, the focal length. Um, you can see the color grading and get
Mhm.
inspiration there. And it's a really good tool that if you're questioning certain things about your work, um, you can just you definitely go here and get inspiration in a heartbeat. And if there's certain looks that you're going for, they have a really good tagging system. So for instance, if I wanted to do like a
Mm.
post-apocalyptic landscape or something, I could very easily go in and type in post-apocalypse or films like Dune, and it will pop up with a ton of reference. I use it for quite a bit of my cosplay composites. So really cool tool. Um, they do have a pricing structure, but if you're looking to get inspired very quickly and start looking into ways that you can further develop your look and feel of your work, it's a good place to go. So
Very interesting. Let me give you back the screen.
okay, there we go. Are we
And
set? You
you're
can see
back.
it
Yes,
again.
you're back.
Cool. Okay, so Shotdeck, super cool place to look, for a lot of different things. Now, in this case here, what I'm thinking is we can actually get maybe have some fun with lighting. So I like to work with warm, cool lighting schemes quite often. And so I'm just kind of placing this light back down behind our subject, but I think we actually might want this to be a little bit lower, kind of coming through what we could consider mountains. Now, in most cases, I might look to do this in something like real world scale. In this case, I think we're just working with, smaller. In this case, is probably going to help my computer not die. So let's see here. Let's grab both of our lights and we'll change the color. And let's see here. We'll just do something a bit more warm. There we go. And now if I want to adjust kind of the overall temperature of the environment as a whole and make that a little bit more on the cool side, we could probably just increase some of the saturation here from our dome light. I feel like that's working pretty well. We can just go to 100% there, and then we can also tint this by a color if we want to do that as well. Okay. All right, so now I'm looking at the light in the background, and I'm thinking that we might want to have a little bit more detail here, kind of more directly in the foreground. So there are a few different ways that we could go about that. Um, there are times that I'll use, something like a displacer object um, or a displacer deformer, and we can actually go ahead and try that out here. So we'll select our primary landscape. And let's go ahead and grab a displacer. We'll hold down shift, so that will make the deformer a child of our landscape object. We can head to shading, go to shader, and we can throw noise in here. And we'll see that's definitely going to take effect. All right, so for the noise, let's go ahead and select the noise type. So I think in this case, we can try something like Naki. Octaves are fine. Let's change our global scale. We'll do something like maybe not 0.25. We'll do 25%. There we go. And then we can drop the rest of these down as well. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to go to 10s across the board. So we can adjust that down. Give that a moment to update. Maybe bring that back up. So as I'm doing this, I already see that I'm going to have a couple issues here. So I'll just grab a few of these objects that we have, and we can drop this down. Now, I might actually do some more of this with a kind of a material for the final piece rather than sticking directly to geometry. That can get pretty heavy. In kind of a normal production case, I guess for me, this would be something that I would probably be using Quixel Megascans for. Really makes a lot of these processes quite a bit faster. And in that case, I don't really have to worry about materials and whatnot for the scene either. There we go. Okay, so I think that would actually work out just fine. I feel like I have a pretty good angle that I'm sitting in here with the camera. As soon as I start to place any type of displacement on the ground, we're obviously going to have to start making a few different adjustments. But in this case, I feel like that works out. I'm actually going to take our light here from the back, and I'm going to place this a little bit more directly behind our subject here. Let's see if we can push it just a little bit more light down the center towards the camera. Okay. Now at this point, let's go ahead and start with kind of a first, maybe basic material. So we can get rid of those, and we'll create a new standard material. We can adjust our viewports, bring our node editor back. Okay, it looks like it's hanging up just a little bit. Let's go ahead and save the scene. Gonna reset this layout and see what happens here. Okay, so it looks like I've got my first bug in a stream here. So we're not pulling not pulling that up. So let's go ahead and instead of the standard, let's go ahead and try just a regular Redshift material.
Yeah, that was strange.
That was very strange. So, all right. Either way, we'll make it work. Okay, so for this material here, what we'll probably do is just use something at kind of a low, um, low reflection or a nice rough material. And you won't see the previews here. I currently have those turned off. Bring the roughness up. Go ahead and restart the render view here a moment. Now, even aside of these kind of crazy technical difficulties that we seem to be having today, this is very much the type of process that I go through on a regular basis, oftentimes much faster. But nonetheless, when I'm working on building photo composites and whatnot, if you guys haven't seen my work, it's kind of just my first and last name.com. You can check it out there. I do a lot of cosplay photography and mixing, photography with 3D, doing this same type of thing. And really just building environments around my subjects. And so everything that we're doing today, even though it's running a little bit slower, is still that same process. And so kind of the thought process that I'm using here is the same thing that I use in real life and vice versa. As I said, I've mixed quite a bit back and forth between what I do in photography and in C4D. So it's really good to get a base and have a good knowledge base on kind of multiple different workflows and the way to go about things. All right, so we have our Redshift material. What I'm going to do is actually throw this directly on the environment as well, kind of see what reflections would look like. This for me is very much the easiest way to see what kind of a reflection contribution would look like to the silhouette of my environment and the scene here as a whole. So if I'm grabbing maybe the camera, we can head in and we'll add a depth of field here. We can actually set our derive from camera to none. Take our circle of confusion, raise that up, and then we'll start to drop this down quite a bit. And we do have our focus distance. What we can do is actually head into our camera object. And I believe it's on object. There we go, focus object, and we'll grab our focus null and we can place that in here. Give that a moment to update. There we go. So now we can just take our focus distance from the camera. That'll make it a little bit easier so we're not having to go back and forth. Give that a second to pick up, but I can set my circle of confusion to something like maybe 2 right away here so that it's not, it looks almost like a miniature at the moment, kind of a macro shot. Maybe go to 1.5 here. Okay, so the reason why I'm sitting here and dropping this continuously is because we're not really working on, at something that's a bit more like a real world scale. And so this can be quite difficult to get it set up. I actually do this in real life every now and then where I just hop into a scene and I have a quick project and I don't worry so much about the technical side of it. And so I just start to throw things in the scene, get ready to render it, and then I'll fix it in post. Um, in this case, it's a little bit different because we have quite a skewed, um, scale in the scene as a whole, and it's a blessing and a curse. So once this finally picks up, um, let's see here. Do we have any questions?
Well, Hannah was saying you could use the focus picker instead of the null. Yes, that's a good way to, but I'd like to use the null myself because you can move it afterward and so on. And the focus picker sometimes fail on complex geometry, for example.
Definitely. And there are times where when it may not seem so much like it, but I feel like my computer's about to croak. Um, and so there are times where I won't use the focus picker just because I don't want my camera, or not my camera, I don't want my computer to have to think any harder than it already is. So if I have a null in the scene, if I'm doing something like moving the camera, it also allows me to pull a very quick and easy rack focus and doing different things based off of that
Mhm.
null. So that's just a what I would, I guess, consider a workflow thing. Um, if I'm working with something that's purely intended to be kind of a still in camera without post or any motion, any of that, then yeah, focus picker works. But definitely not in this case. I don't want my computer to have to think. It looks like it's still kind of processing a thought. So um, let's go ahead down to 0.5 for the circle of confusion. I am very impressed that it hasn't actually died yet.
It's all because of the density of the models. I mean, it's a huge model. I've tried it. I think it's the highest density of all the models we had. And
Oh, gotcha.
there was some question about the ZRemesher that would do an amazing job with that, but it would take a very long time to process. That's why
Right.
you didn't try it, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. So it is difficult, and we run into this stuff. Luckily, I don't think we've actually into this type of scenario quite yet on a stream. But with the challenge and the nature of this, this is definitely a kind of area where we haven't really been able to fully, I guess, practice and run trial runs and know exactly what we're doing. So it could be very much like a real, um, a realistic scenario where you get a project and you don't have R&D time. Um,
Hmm.
when I had loaded these models in, this was actually one that I didn't have directly before the stream, and so I pulled this, and then we found out that I had mic issues. And so, long story short, things happen. Now, here we are. And so that's why I've talked a little bit more about workflow and process than even some of the visuals like I normally would, um, because it's definitely getting tough to work with. So, kind of where I'm at in this shot is really more just setting and balancing lighting. It's kind of where I wanted to talk a bit about today, anyways. Um, and setting up and balancing lighting is super key when you get going. So there are a couple different ways that I do this, and I've seen people mention them in the chat of different streams as we've done these throughout the weeks or even the times that I've been here. So right now I'm using a Redshift material. There are other ways. So inside of the render view, we can see that we have what I would consider like a modes icon. So we have regular that we're currently on, but we can also do the clay mode here and use this to start kind of building and balancing, the lighting in our scene. Now, the reason why I most often go through the process of actually creating a material is because the material is going to better represent like that final output that I'm going to be using. But once you start getting into materials and you start building some complexity in your scene, it's kind of a what I would consider like a balance, apply materials, and then rebalance type of situation. Lionel, I'm not sure if you actually deal with the same um, kind of process as you're starting to go through lighting in your scene. And I
Well,
feel like my computer is actually like kind of croaking. So what I'm gonna do, I do see that we're like right at time. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and we can have a bit more, I guess, of discussion. I'm sorry, everyone. We definitely hit a blocking point here
well, you
on
you
this one
have a
for
good
today.
start anyway, so it's no problem. Let me get the screen again for me. There we are, and we have also we're back to the shot deck. Let me see my camera also. Yeah, actually, it looks like the real world. I mean, you you've been given you had some technical issue, then you were forced to work on a model which is difficult because there would be some more preparation to do with the model. I guess there was some suggestion in the chat to use ZRemesher, but the ZRemesher is going to take some time because we're doing this live. Yeah, it's difficult to
It
change.
is tough. So, definitely for me, it's, the new ZRemesher is absolutely like it's great. I love it. The polygon reduction is something that I would normally use for this as well, just to kind of knock it down, especially if it's not something that has UVs and doesn't have to be, animated. In this case, I was thinking initially like, oh, we can just make this kind of a gold idol statue and, maybe put some little people or figures around it, um, kind of what maybe like a daily render type of deal. um, but at the end of the day, um, knowing composition, knowing lighting, is going to be probably one of the most valuable assets that you can have. Like if you have a mental strength, focus on lighting, focus
Mm,
on composition, because that's really the key to storytelling. um, if we're talking stills, I'm not currently as much of a motion guy, um, but I've spent time in the space, and as you start to learn different workflows and get to know other areas of expertise, you're going to find out that you can make a great model uh, look bad if you don't know how to light and
mm.
you don't know how to work with camera angles, and you can make a bad model look amazing. Um, and so it's definitely good to understand that. Now materials are, it's kind of a subjective kind of outlook because there's so many different styles. You have
Mm.
your you know kind of basic material setups, and you have your photorealism, and then you get into tune shading. That's a whole different scenario. But in any case, you want good lighting, good camera composition, and so little things like those camera helpers that we have in cinema, um, are amazing tools, and it's something that I use quite often, even if I'm just setting up a basic shot.
Yeah, the camera and lighting is everything. I agree. It's always the where I put the most of work and then the material at the end, and then go back to the lighting, maybe change the
Yep.
camera, maybe try another shot. And it was interesting here because it was more about composition and setting up a mood. I mean, we've seen already about material and so on, so it was very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And easy ways to alleviate the problem that we had. If you find that you have a model like the Gremlin here, for instance, that is heavy, use a placeholder. And that's actually something that I probably should have done and talked about, but then we wouldn't visualize, the actual model here. But there are plenty of times where I would just take a cube, and put that exactly where my subject's going to be, and I'll light that cube, or same thing with a cylinder, and I'll light that placeholder and then bring in the heavier object. You can use proxies and references, things like that. um, it just depends on how fast you need to work. So if this were actually, a production piece for me, it would definitely be a little bit different of a process, but kind of the same overall workflow and thought process as we go through it. So
Yeah, everyone on the chat is very supportive. So,
yeah,
someone like it's more like a real world situation, but
it definitely is.
I record a lot of tutorials and we rehearse a lot so that we don't make any mistake. In real life, it's not like that. Here, what's interesting in this challenge is that it's very stressing for us because
Yeah,
we improvise, and today it was total improvisation.
yeah, and so it definitely. I mean, as everybody in the community gets to know me a bit more, I like these type of scenarios, to be honest. Like this is, if I don't have to practice before a webinar, I may take a look at the shot, kind of get an idea of like what I'm looking at, kind of the assets that I'm dealing with. But I definitely like to bring as much of a real world or kind of like true thought process, to this when I'm doing it. Um, Luckily, when we're doing things like materials and whatnot, it's kind of just a workflow, that we're used to doing. If we're talking, different operations in cinema or, these products, that's a bit different. And then you'll see me kind of stress out a lot and put a lot of practice into it. So creative stuff, I like to wing it. Technical stuff, you're right. It's a lot of processing power for the brain.
Exactly. So I guess that will wrap it up for today. And so thank you everyone for watching this. Thank you, Dustin, for trying to get the gremlins as good. But I think you have a very good start. I'm sure you will be able to show next time
Yeah,
a much more refined final result, or almost final. We'll
for
see.
sure. Yeah,
Okay,
well, I'll put
so
it together.
yeah. So thanks again, everyone. So you can see the final result. No, not the final result. I'm sorry. The recap of the show here on the Maxon Training Team, and we will see you very soon in another episode. So thank you, everyone, and bye bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week.